So here are a few sample shields if you decide you want to make the shield project. I'm going to point out a few designs that you can incorporate in your ideas with some of these. So first thing, rivets. Fairly simple. We've got a pattern here, looks like a J. Somebody's used a few rivets. You do have an amount of rivets I need you to install. They can be either pop rivets or they can be the bigger standard rivets like you see on this one. Okay, so we've just got a straight line. These pieces are spot welded up here. Don't need to do any spot welding, but that's an option if you've got your rivets. Your shield does need to have some bends. So you can see we've got two bends here. This one is not finished, so it doesn't have any bends in it. It does have hems, but hems don't count. Another one that's unfinished. Bends, this one is really neat. We've got overlapping bends. Turned out really cool. Kind of almost looks like a diamond. And then we've got initials stamped in with just a center punch. Okay, so you do need to have some kind of design or pattern on it. You can do that design like it shows here with the center punch. You can do it with rivets. You can add pieces on to make it double thick with the scraps that we cut off from our piece of metal. So if we keep moving around here, we can also do the design like this. This is called embossing. We use it's called an edge former to put that in. We can make shapes like this. Now, you'll notice this was made in two pieces and riveted together. We do that because to cut this notch out, we can't do it with a notcher. So we make it in two separate pieces, we put the hems on it, and then we rivet it together. So that's an option. Kind of hard to see through all the rust, but there are a couple of bends in it as well. We've got that guy right there. When we cut this out, we cut these bottom triangles off and we riveted them back on up at the top to make the seam a little bit bigger. Lots of different options there. A couple others. These are all been left behind, but really any shape as long as it has straight lines, curves we can't do. All right, it's just too hard for the skill we're at right now. And the machines we have in our shop. But some things to think about. You're going to start with a approximately 22-inch square sheet of steel. And from that square sheet, you can come up with your own design, shape, patterns, however you want to make it. That is totally up to you. Let's talk about some of the requirements for the shield now. So with the shield, first thing I would like you to do on this project is brainstorm, generate some ideas. So on a piece of paper in your notebook, I think the easiest way to do this is to draw yourself some squares. I'm using a Sharpie. I would like you to use a pen or a pencil. Sharpie just shows up a little better in the videos. So you're going to start with a square, okay? We're not going to worry about measurements right now. We're just generating ideas. You can kind of start coming up with some shapes you think you might like. Okay, so we would cut that shape out if that's one. Let's see, other things we can do. Maybe something like, I don't know, we're just drawing ideas here. Maybe we could take these pieces and attach them down here so it's going to look like that. It's kind of upside down looking, but like I say, we don't care. We're just hooping out ideas onto the paper. One shape I really like is where we kind of do a double angle, but again, this is just me. So we've got two angles. It's a little harder to figure out the measurements, but this line here looks, I like it. Again, we can continue, we can do more things like this where the pieces we cut out we can reuse. If we want to do, sorry, should start with a box. If we want to do a shape like this, again, we would probably make that in 2 pieces, or maybe we want to do a shape like this and attach some pieces on top. We could make those out of these pieces. Just whatever idea you like, it's up to you. It's your shield. So one thing I should also mention, if you want more metal, if you want to make a bigger shield, you can buy more metal. With the class, the piece of metal you get is going to be 22 inches by 22 inches. You're going to get, it starts out a little bit bigger, but by the time we get it squared down, this is about what our measurements are going to be. So that's kind of what we're estimating right now. Okay? So come up with one more idea here. Maybe something like this and something kind of like this. But then I'm going to take those 2 pieces and put them up on top, I don't know, like that. That's kind of cool. All right, so you've got your ideas. You're going to show me this. Tell me which one you picked. Okay, I'm just gonna, well, say I picked this one. And I'm gonna say, okay, now you need to draw it out and come up with some estimates for measurements. So nice and big. We're gonna do that again. And again, we're not using a ruler for this step. We're just kind of estimating. I drew myself a nice big square. If I look back at the one I chose, all right, it's gonna go to the middle. So approximately the middle, and up here maybe a little lower than half, so I'm going to draw those lines in, come over here about like that. You can use a ruler if you want, but I'm just freehanding it because this is just our ideas still. Okay, so if I know this is 22 inches tall and 22 inches wide, I should be able to figure out the measurement from this corner to here pretty easily. I don't care how long this line is. I don't care. It doesn't do us any good to know. To place this line, I need to measure from a corner up and from another corner over. Doesn't matter. This and that, those 2 matter. We're going to do some estimating. This one should be really easy because we know the full length is 22, half of 22, so from here to there, this number is going to be, did you get it? Did you say 11 inches? I hope so, because half of 22 is 11. This side would be the exact same, so I don't need to do that side, but if it's different, if for some reason you decided to make this side down like this, we would need to do that too. Okay, but where this is a mirror image, we're only going to work on half of it. All right, so if this is the middle, that I'm going to say it goes up to the middle. So I'm going to say this one is also equal to 11 inches. This one obviously is not. Okay, if we're estimating, that would be half of 11, so approximately 5.5. So I'm going to say this measurement from here to here, I'm going to call it 4, and this looks a little more of a 40 than a 45, so I'm going to call that one 6, from here to that corner. All right? So whatever this ends up being, this is going to be 11 by 11. So 11 plus 11 is 22. Is that going to fit in here? It's not, because this is going to be 6 also, so the distance between those is going to be 10. We don't need to know that, really, unless we're going to put those pieces on. So if I'm going to put 2 pieces up here, the most they can be is 5 inches. Maybe I change my plan. I'm not going to put those pieces up there. Maybe I'll put these pieces up there. maybe I'll just take this piece and move it over so that it goes like that, right? So these two pieces, I'm just moving over, and these two pieces, maybe I can put on the outside of my shield, rivet them on like some of those examples we saw a minute ago, kind of like that. Okay, so this is a pretty good start. You'll notice I didn't bother with measurements for these or these yet. The main thing we need is the shield. The main thing from the shield is if we're cutting a piece off, we've got this and that. We need an X and Y measurement for each of these lines to create that triangle. So I've got two, if I'm only looking at half, I've got this piece and that piece, two pieces. I've got an X and a Y for the bottom one. I've got an X and a Y for the top one. All right? You'll also notice I didn't say anything about hems. We're going to put the hems on later. We're not worrying about the hems in the calculations. This is a little different. Okay? So when you bring this up to me, that's starting to look pretty good, but it's not quite ready for my final inspection. Okay? So project requirements. We'll have these listed in our classroom as well. So number one, 22 inches by 22 inches. Maximum size unless you're buying more metal. Number two, hems. All edges, all exposed edges must have hems. Okay, and I mentioned we're going to put those on after. We'll show you how to do that after we have this shape all cut out. Third requirement, rivets. You need a minimum of 8 rivets. They can be pop rivets, they can be standard rivets, you can have 4 of each or 8 of one kind, whatever you want to do. Next one is bends. Whoops, let's write that correctly. Needs to be, we want to turn it into something 3D, so we're going to give it some bends to kind of round it or form it out a little bit. The last requirement is some kind of pattern. You can combine some of these. The rivets could make the pattern. The bends could make the pattern. I'll also give you a little tip here. You could also make your plasma cutter project part of the shield. Okay, the plasma cutter does not replace any of this though. So if you want to, your plasma project, whatever it is you've decided to cut out, if at the end you want to rivet this on to your shield somehow, we can do that. We've done some pretty cool things with that, kind of along these lines. But I do need you to show me here on your drawing. We don't need to worry about hems. I do want to see where you're planning on putting rivets, bends, and a pattern. Okay, so if this was my design, we could do a lot of different things. I could put one bend right down the middle. We could do 2 bends or 3 bends or overlapping bends. This kind of makes it a little more tricky, not impossible, but I think I would put bends, I would go from the middle here to my point. So I'm going to show my bend lines by dotted lines, like that. So these 2 pieces are going to be bent back just a little bit. That gives me a nice big flat area right here for rivets or bends or whatever I want to do. Now if I do this, this would count as my rivets. I could have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That would be 10 rivets. I don't have to do more rivets to make a pattern, I just need at least 8 rivets. All right, so that's one of the bonuses of doing this, is that can use up some of that requirement. And then I've got my bends. The pattern, maybe I want to do a great big T. And how I do it, well, that's individual choice. We can do the punches with all the dots. We can emboss, but the embossing can be tricky. It can be hard to reach the middle section of the shield. So sometimes with the embossing, we might have to move it over closer to a side. We could do more. I could do rivets to make a T. I could do additional rivets. Lots of different options. I could put my plasma cutter project right here. If I plasma cut a big fancy T or something, you know, kind of like that, I could spot weld or pop rivet something cool on there. But this is kind of what I need to see with your design before you start. All right, so once I've looked at this, that means we're done, right? We can start. Well, no, it doesn't. It means you can get your metal. Okay, once I have checked this off, I'll say, all right, so we need to start with our 22-inch by 22-inch piece. So the other thing, this is important. Please listen to this. Do not, let me repeat that, do not move on to the next step until Mr. Turner has checked the current step. Your friends are doing things differently. They made a different shield. The order they're doing things is going to be different than yours. So just because your friend put their rivets in now, doesn't mean it's your turn. When we do the bends, when we do the rivets, it depends on where they are. Sometimes we bend first, sometimes we put rivets in first, sometimes we do other things. All right? But after I've said, all right, go get your 22-inch piece of metal, you're going to go, and you're probably going to have to, if you recall on our big sheets, how we measure over 23 inches, draw that line, plug in the electric shears for me so I can cut that chunk off, because really you're going to be using half of this, right? You're going to measure up 22, and you're going to cut that chunk off. That's your piece, and then you're going to square this edge and measure over 22 and square that edge. So you're left with a 22-inch square piece of metal. And now you're going to have to come up to me with your drawing, and I'll tell you what to do. Every time you come see me for help, you need to bring this piece of paper. I don't remember what your design is. I've got, well, this trimester, I've got almost 70 of you guys doing projects. I can't keep that straight. So bring this with you. And it's always a good idea to put your name on your design and scratch it into your big sheet of steel when you get that cut out. So that's the shield project. Okay, again, I'll put these requirements in our classroom. What if you don't want to make a shield? Well, we have some other options. Let's go look at some of our other options. So if you decide you don't want to make a shield, we've got lots of other things you can make. You can totally invent something of your own. I've had students in the past make, I had a student make, she made high heels out of sheet metal. She designed them, we cut them out, it worked okay. Okay, so I had another student, he made a spoiler for a go-kart, you know, big fin like the Indy cars have, and it turned out great. I've had students build specific boxes to hold specific things like remote controls or ammo or different things like that. So there's tons of options. Most common option other than the shield is some kind of box. So we can always make another box similar to this, but maybe a little more detail. We can put a lid on it with a hinge and maybe a latch if we have time. We can do a little, toolbox style thing. We can do a dust pan. I've got a design for a lunch box, or this is a bigger box. Be kind of hard to see with the camera where I've got it set, but we've got some options. Whatever it is you decide to do, I need to see a plan, just like what we did with the other one. And believe it or not, the project requirements are the same. The biggest piece of metal you get is 22 by 22. If we don't need that, great. It needs hems, it needs rivets, it needs bends, and some kind of pattern. All right? So, pretty simple, different ways to do it. This box is huge, but it still fits in a 7 by 7, a 22 by 22 size piece of metal. So if you wanted to do something like this, all right, well, draw it up, kind of like what we've been doing. And I'm going to draw it kind of funky at the moment. All right, but you'll notice that one, this box had kind of that handle shape over here. So we're going to add that on. All right, on both ends. But I need measurements. So decide. You can measure this one up and decide if that's what you want it, or just come up with, well, I want it to fit this item, so it's going to be 3 inches wide. Actually, let's say 4 inches wide and 8 inches long. And this part is going to be 2 inches. And this part's going to be 1 inch. All right? You should be able to take this and unfold it like with what we've been doing and calculate how big a piece of metal we need. Again, it needs to have hems. It's going to have hems up here. So let's do this. Using this drawing, we're going to lay that out. All right, so we said the base was going to be 4 by 8. This side, these two long sides, were going to be 2 inches. But these sides were going to be taller. They're going to be a total of 3 inches, right? And this is going to have a hem. This is going to have a hem. This is going to have a hem. That's going to have a hem. 1/4, 1/4, 1/4, 1/4. We need to come up with a length and a width. Tabs aren't going to bother us any. The fact that these are actually going to be slanted, that's not going to change the overall length and width. So that's why I haven't bothered to do it yet. So if we add 3 plus 8, well, let's do 6 plus 8 is going to be 14 and a half this way. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Just making sure. Measure twice, right? Cut once. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and a half that way. So this is what you're going to need to show me before you can start on this project. If you need help coming up with the measurements or kind of the design, drawing it out, that's what I'm here for. But again, your project requirements, there they are right there. And sky's the limit. I would love to try other things. I've had students try and build boats, little model steel sheet metal boats, little car projects or trucks. We can try those kinds of things. So we're not limited to only shields or only boxes. If you got a cool idea, come talk to me and let's see if we can figure out how to make it. Enjoy. This should be fun. I hope you have been paying attention and are able to figure out all the hems and everything, and your project turns out awesome.